Good morning, sisters. Welcome to our fourth episode, first one in the new year of Provident Living for the Relief Society. Today we're going to talk a little bit about cost with your food storage. And not that I'm going to tell you how much everything should cost or does cost, although you probably should know that the case lot sales are on right now. And I would recommend that you look into those. Hopefully that you figured out for a couple of weeks. Christmas is a little hard because circumstances might not be normal at your household, but I'm hoping that you gave it some thought and have been able to come up with at least knowing some things that you would need the amounts of for a whole year for your family. But over the years, as I've taught a little bit about being prepared along the lines of food storage, I have encountered people who talk about, I can't afford that. So years ago, I actually did a little presentation on what $1 and $5 could buy you. Well, $1 is really not going to get you anything anymore. And you would really be building your food storage at a slow pace. So I hope you guys know that really foundational, I'm just going to backtrack a little bit, is the replace, those two words, replace and location. So I hope that you took that to heart, that you have figured out where you can put your food storage, and that replacing it is super important. Because it's great if you go, like I said before, if you go to the case lot sale and buy a whole bunch of this or that, but you've got to maintain that amount in your storage for it to be helpful for you long term. So if you just use it as your local grocery store, very local, and use it up until it's gone, you're really not helping yourself in the long run for what it's intended for, is emergencies. So we're going to talk just a little bit about cost today. So I went to the store and I just got some things, and I have been feeling that I needed to help out my kids a little bit. So what I got was things that they're going to get, but I wanted to keep it to around $5, $10, and $20, just to show you guys that if you can just spend $5 a week extra on your groceries, what that can do for you, or $10 a week or $20 a week, you can really make some progress. So if you can, figure out how to just put a little bit more towards your food storage, you can build it up. Now, having said that, for my own personal inspiration, revelation, I don't feel like there's a lot of time to do this. And I feel comfortable with what I have food storage wise, but I need to help my kids. And so that's something to think about. If you're watching these going, or even not watching, tuning them out because you already have your food storage, great for you. But what about those you love? If they're not prepared, especially if they're in circumstances where they can be prepared. One of my children, they just finished college. Others just, bought their first they live in a condo, and they just did that a couple of years ago. So they have, they all have a little bit of space, very little, limited space. My son, who's not married, has roommates in an apartment situation. My oldest has a house, but is a new mom, so they've got to now plan for that expansion of their family. So, they're kind of all in situations where they need a little bit of help. So, having said that, I did go to the store, and this is one of the foundational things that you need to have in your food storage, especially if you're like a Salty Sam or a Salty Sally, where you salt everything. So, and the no-name brand or the store brand was about half the price. I'm showing you brands. Half the price of the full name brand. And with a lot of things, I kind of don't care what the brand is. Some of you may have preferences or whatever. That's great. But to me, salt is salt. What is important is that you have the iodine in it, the iodized salt. Because we are landlocked here, that's an important ingredient in your diet. So hopefully you've thought about your spices, but salt is pretty foundational in having enough for your family. So I actually went and bought, for just a little over $5, if you could tell, 8 of these. So that's what $5 will buy you. And 8 would be good for a decent sized family for just about a year, I'm sure. Even when I cook a lot, we don't go through salt super fast. So But if you were having to cook every meal deluxe, you might go through it a little faster, and depending on the size of your family. So that's what they're getting for the $5. So for $10, bring them all over here. I got 4 of these. Now I bought the Crisco brand. It's the store brand, and there's a reason for that. Because now expiration date. Notice I said expiration date, not pull date. So when you get into oils, that's pretty close to when you're going to have to have used your oils. Anything oil-based or with oils in them expires very quickly. So the dates on these are pretty important. Anyway, one thing you might want to think about when you go to the store. So I checked all the other brands, and I just got the regular vegetable oil. If you guys like canola oil, sunflower oil, olive oil, whatever it is you cook with, fine. Some of those do not last as long as others. So you need to be aware of that and keep that in mind, and you're going to have to rotate it out of your food storage. Anyway, the reason I got the name brand instead of the no-name brand is there was literally a whole year's difference in the date on the oil. And even though it was a little bit more money, I want to make sure that I can, my kids anyway, can store these as long as possible. So I went ahead and spent a little more and got this one. So that's something to pay attention to. Also, often when you go to the grocery store, they stock lower and to the back the things that expire later and the things expire, the pull dates that are later. The pull dates that are sooner are towards the front and often more level, not necessarily eye level, but reachable level. Anyway, that's something to know. So when you go and you choose your storage that you're going to buy at the store, that you do that. So for $20, so the oil was 10, the salt was 5, 4 things of oil was a little more. These were just a little bit above the 10, a little bit above the 5, and these were a little bit above the 20, but right around there. So I bought 4 of these, and they have 12 bars in each one. So basically 48 bars of salt. That is also something that we will talk about in another broadcast, is other things that you need to consider in your storage. So down the road, we may do this just a little bit differently. There are the reason I believe food storage should be individualized is because your family's needs, your family's taste, your family's way of doing things, it all differs. So you need to individualize it so it works for you. If you have a gluten problem in your household and you cannot do that, then you need to work around that. For us, like with the beans, don't like the beans. So we have to work around that and do it other ways. So I don't want to go off into little tiny tangents of specific food storage things. I want to keep it very general for everybody so it just encompasses everybody. And then you can do that your very own way, however you'd like to do it. I appreciate the feedback, though. I've gotten some great feedback, and with their permission, down the road, I may steer people towards them because of their individuality of how they do things, which is great. Good for you guys, finding a way to make it work for you. That's awesome. I do want you to keep in mind with your food storage that you have to plan. You really do. You have to plan for not having an oven that works if it's an electric oven, or not having a fridge or a freezer. You have to think about those things when you do your food storage, because that really could happen. And I was having this discussion, I can't remember with who, just a while back, and they're like, no, I just don't believe it on the electricity. I think it'll always be good. And I just looked at her and said, California, right now, at least in the summer, they were shutting off their electricity for days at a time, sometimes even weeks. And if your food storage is all in your fridge and freezer, bye-bye. I don't know how you keep it from going bad unless you have a generator, and then you've got to have enough to supply the generator. I mean, you really got to think through those things. And worst case scenario, in today's world, it's just possible. So hope for the best, plan for the worst. I will see you next Thursday at 10 o'clock, and I hope that everybody is getting all you can out of this and that it's been helpful for you and your families. Anyway, you have a great week, and we'll see you then. Thanks, ladies. Bye-bye.